Thank you everyone for being here. And I believe that the cafe is staying open, so please buy food and drinks and tip the folks making it for you. And my name is Jonah Aline Daniel, and I work with the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network. Wow, you have some serious sun in your eyes. Yeah? Wow. And also in the United States with the Stop the Jewish National Fund campaign. And in January I was on a... Can I walk it by where I stand? I'm just watching people's eyes.
Take care of our needs.
Okay, thanks. In January I was on a political delegation to Palestine called Plant a Tree in Palestine. And it was a project of the Middle East Children's Alliance, the Palestinian Farmers Union, Stop the Wall, the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, and the Stop the J.N.F campaign. So what you're seeing and hearing tonight is video documentation of the delegation, photo documentation of the delegation, and a slideshow that's about the history of the Jewish National Fund, and more specifically the history of the Jewish National Fund in the historic and ongoing colonization of Palestine. So I hope that it's helpful information, and there'll be, I'm going to just give a chunk of presentation about 45 minutes, and then there'll be time for both questions and hopefully some discussion. So if you have questions that come up, unless it's something really urgent and egregious, I'll sort of keep going, and you can maybe just make a mental note or jot something down. And I think there'll be plenty of time to talk about what it is that comes up. I've been doing work around justice in Palestine for about 11 or 12 years. And this visit was my first visit to Palestine, and it really, really shifted things kind of internally for me around, I think maybe most of all, feeling really compelled to and confident to speak to people about what it is that I saw there, but in terms of really solidifying what it is, what it is that's happening, and some ways to address it moving forward. And specifically as a Jewish person who identifies deeply with Jewish culture and spirituality and ethics, I'm completely outraged about what's happening in Palestine and what's being done in my name. And we won't be looking at my pictures. And the Jewish National Fund, historically, and we'll hear about it, but it's best known for its campaign Plant a Tree in Israel, which is very explicitly and a sort of emotion. I mean, we'll learn about what it did, but it's really a manipulation of, in many ways, of Jewish kind of history and collective trauma and yearning, and it links this colonization project with this project around planting a tree in Israel and buying a certificate, and the times that you buy a certificate is for births and deaths and bat mitzvahs and weddings, and really very significant markers in a life. So in that way, it really kind of emotionally ties, has tied American, at least Jewish, life in with this project. So I'd be happy to talk more about that or answer any questions about that. And so I'm going to start with a video that was made. So I was a part of the US delegation, was me and Alex Safran, and he took about 50 hours of footage of our delegation and made an 11-minute video. So for those of you who work with video, it's been a tremendous, tremendous project, and I hope that you enjoy it and that it's informative and helpful. Sorry. No, that would be helpful. Thank you. The beginning is silent, so you won't get an audio clue that it's started.
I don't know how much you know about the J.N.F, but it's one of the most racist bodies in Israel, which, as I said, taking the land of the refugees and building for the Jewish people. And if you can look at the website of the J.N.F, it is said that they are proposed to protect the land of the Jewish people. They don't sell lands for Arabs, even if they are citizens of Israel. In this area that we visit today, this park, for example, the USA park and the British park, is totally clean from Arabs or from Palestinian villages. And dozens of villages were here in this area. It wasn't empty, like sometimes people could say. It was much of life was here and stopped suddenly at 1948. So the names of the villages inside the USA park is Deir el-Hawa, Beit Atab, Allar, Sufla, Deir Aban, Jarsh.
أول شيء عرفها عبد القادر حسن اللحام من بيت عطاب، عمري 90 سنة، مشهورة بالشجر بالأشجار، بقيت الأراضي اللي كانت فيها مزروعة زيتون وتين وعنب وصفرجل ورمان.
The trees around here still the original ones. The J.N.F didn't plant here pines like that area. You can see the top of the hills. These trees are not original trees. The pines actually one of the policies of the J.N.F. They brought from Europe this kind of trees. It's not original for the area. And they planted millions of trees around Palestine inside Israel since 1948.
كانت حياتنا لذيذة وحلوة وكويسة. بعدين بيوتنا اللي بكينا بانينها كلها ردموها على بعضها.
These stones are part of the houses. You can see this. Yeah. These are the stones of the houses. Actually, we are walking on the destroyed houses. From Al-Jul, you can find a big community living in Aida and the Heshi refugee camps in Bethlehem. Zakaria, again, the biggest families and most of the people of Zakaria living in the Heshi refugees camp.
The Heshi refugee camp is one of 52 refugees camps distributed in West Bank, Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. In this camp, there is 13,000 people live in less than half kilometer square. So you can imagine how it's very difficult to live in 13,000 people live in less than half kilometer square. One of the main problems that we face here in the camp is electricity. We have very poor electricity in the winter, so this is really very big problem. Each day we live without electricity more than 6 hours. Each day, every house here. And also we have water problem, but in the summer. In the summer we have a big problem with water. We don't have enough water every day. So this is two main problems that we face here in the camp. Also, you know, other problems that we face, we don't have enough places for children to play, no playgrounds, the children just play in the streets.
So like my family example, like the Jewish National Fund buy my village from the Israeli government and they make a begging balconies, but okay, we still have the papers, the old Turkish document, Ottoman document of the land. And also in this land, they don't have the right, and then the government have no, it's colonization, even like when you talk about peace or one-state solution in the future, there is no peace solution in the future without the refugees case. The main conflict in Palestine is the refugees. If the refugees go back to their home, all other cases will be solved. That's why we say the main thing is the refugee case. Also, we didn't ask for the return. We asked for the right of return, the right to choose where we want to live in our country. The right where, like, example for me, I wouldn't want to go to Al-Kabul. It's my homeland, my village. I want to go live in Haifa. I have the right to go back to the exact area. But okay, I will have the right, okay, I can also have the right to choose where I want to live. I may live here or live there.
Well, we are in Arakib, the Bedouin village that already destroyed 45 times, was rebuilt 45 times by the residents in the Arakib. As you can see, the J.N.F is taking over the land of the people. In the last year, they already planted hundreds of acres of land belongs to the Bedouins. The J.N.F is planting eucalyptuses and different desert trees here against the will of the people. We are resisting the activities done by the J.N.F. I am Aziz Turi from Arakib village that's destroying 45 times since 27 from July 2010. I live in Arakib since I born until now. The last time, before 3 years ago, the J.N.F beginning to destroy and uproot our trees. The J.N.F beginning to use bulldozers to destroy our houses and to uproot our trees.
For our friends from the campaign against the J.N.F, on the behalf of the communities here, I'm welcoming you, and we are appreciating your support. We are appreciating your standing there and appealing the policies and such a kind of a criminal societies that they are on the name of the humanity and donations. They are contributing in the catastrophe of our people. It started in 48, but it didn't finish. As you see here, it's continue. In here in Susia, in south of Jordan Valley, this neighborhoods is under a systematic expulsion process. The names of the villages that we have in our hands is 112 villages that we are going to plant 112 trees to commemorate these villages and to tell the J.N.F that by either by destroying these villages or bringing donation to plant on the ruins of these villages, you are not going to eliminate it from the history. It's going to be our inspiration for the continuation of our struggle in the future. Your existence will be here with us, have a lots of meaning. It means that we are not alone, and our struggle together is going to stop all this catastrophe that the Israeli colonial occupation is trying to do against us.
Encourage people to just take a breath in case you were holding your breath. I might have been. It was very, very powerful to be there, and to learn about the role of the J.N.F. and be connected to the resistance to the J.N.F. I'm going to transition now from January 2013 all the way back to the founding of the J.N.F., and I think it gives a little more context for what it is that we saw in this video. So, just look at my time. Okay, the Jewish National Fund was founded in 1901, and founded explicitly to be a part of the project of building a Jewish homeland inside of Palestine. I've already said the word Zionism at least a couple of times tonight, so it makes sense to kind of start there and define that. So by Zionism, I mean the ideology and movement behind the colonization of Palestine. So it's the ideology and the activities on which the Israeli state is built, and the main push or idea behind that, goal behind that, is maximum land in Palestine for Jews and for the state of Israel with the minimum number of Palestinians on the land. And that's been very, very explicitly the goal. That's not some secret hidden agenda. So as I said, the Jewish National Fund was founded in 1901 at the 5th Zionist Congress with the mission of buying land in Eretz Yisrael that were the inalienable property of the Jewish people and for the sole use of Jewish people, and prohibited from selling land, particularly to Arabs or Palestinians in the region. From 1901 until Al-Nakba, which we heard referenced in the video, one of the primary activities of the Jewish National Fund is the building of what's called the village files. So from aerial photographs and topographical maps and people going to villages and sort of under the guise of being visitors, the Jewish National Fund gathered information about where are the wells and where are the buildings and how many guns and how many chickens and how many people, and also what are the networks and organizations of people and who's most historically involved in resistance to British and Zionist colonization, and who's sort of most likely to be trouble in what is to come. And so those village files played a huge role in what happened in 1947 and 1948, Al-Nakba, the catastrophe, the removal of 750,000 Palestinians from their homes and villages, and the destruction of those homes and villages between 1947 and 1949. So this was really a primary reference for Zionist forces and in this basically military invasion and depopulation, destruction, and theft of this land. They continued to play a role after Al-Nakba. Now strategies, so originally they were buying land from Palestinians and from Arabs on the land. Now they've been a part of the project of forcibly removing people and just removing people from the land, and now they're in the process of acquiring land that people have abandoned, basically, right? So it's an absentee land, and of course people do not have the option to return to their land. So, and so by 1956, the J.N.F. increased the percentage of land that they own from 3.5%. So between 1948 and 1956, from 3.5% to 13%, which doesn't seem like huge numbers, but remember, we're not talking about the state of Israel. We're talking about what is supposedly one small organization, which of course it isn't, but that's a tremendous amount of land for one organization to own in this region. And 72% of the land that was acquired was acquired illegally under Geneva Convention and under sort of international law. And the other activities include environmental destruction of a variety of types, including a draining of an entire lake, and then the destruction of, as a result, all of the things that were once living there. In addition to these activities, the Jewish National Fund is essentially a part of the Israeli Land Administration, which is the body that makes decisions about land for Israel, administers 93% of the land. So the J.N.F. was given 10 seats on this administration of 22. So they have tremendous influence over how land is used. And they can represent Israel in international proceedings that have to do with land, and are very influential even though they are legally independent of the state. And I think this quote is powerful, so I think I'll just read it to you. Entrusting the Jewish people's land to J.N.F. frees the state of Israel, even though it is the state of the Jewish people, from having to do with this discrimination against Palestinians, this issue, and in doing so violate the principle of equality. So it's a strategy to have an organization that plays a role in the decisions made by the government, but is legally separate. That's a strategy. And here's an example of more activities of the Jewish National Fund is Canada Park. So, excuse me. As a part of the process of occupying the West Bank, these three villages, Imwas, Yalu, and Beit Nabu, were demolished. And then in less than 10 years later, I guess 4 or 5 years later, well, we'll see the dates in just a minute, Canada Park was established with funds from Jewish National Fund Canada. So here's a picture of Imwas in 1958, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's a church and a road to Ramallah and a boys' school, a mosque, coffee house, cemetery, and then we see in 1967, here's the bulldozers. And then 1968, this is the same space, and with sort of telling you this what used to be here, so now it's pretty cleared, bulldozed, flat. And then You know, let's see, what was the date? 68 to 88. So 20 years later, if this wasn't your village, if you didn't know the area well, you might not know that anything was ever here. These are Jewish National Fund trees planted on the ruins of this village. They are trees from Europe. They are trees that are invasive to the region. They are, I can't tell exactly, but the predominant trees planted are pine trees, which also litter pine needles, which make the soil very acidic, make it difficult for anything else to grow, and also are sort of colonial in nature. They also litter pine cones, which spread and spread and spread their seeds everywhere. And we learned while I was in Palestine, you know, I was watching these villages with this trees and J.N.F. trees and trees and trees encroaching on land, and wondering why don't folks just rip up all these trees, and learned that it's a $50,000 shekel fine for damaging or removing a J.N.F. tree. So that's, I can't do the math, but that's, I mean, that's a tremendous amount of money. So as I was saying, you know, they're planting non-indigenous trees. The trees are not suited for the environment, so there's also a lot of deadly and destructive forest fires as a result. And in addition to just the damage done by planting the trees that are invasive, they're also destroying natural environments for development of agriculture and also for building of settlements. So just as a summary, 250 million non-indigenous trees, and also to be really clear, the planting of the non-indigenous trees includes the uprooting of the indigenous trees. So that means olive trees and citrus trees and trees that are as old as 1,000 years and that have been really central to the economies and the life and self-sustaining capacity of communities and families. Developed over 250,000 acres for settlement, planted over 1,000 parks, and created 80 dams and reservoirs. So if you can believe it, the Jewish National Fund brands itself as an environmental organization. So they are invited to speak at environmental conferences. They describe their work as environmental. They are reforesting, and I wish I had better documentation of the language that they use. We visited a memorial grove that was literally like a mile of stones and stones and stones of all of the people who've donated to the Jewish National, thank you to all of the people who have made all of this possible over time, and it includes all of their propaganda about how great what it is that they're doing, and really describe their work as bringing sort of life to the desert, to that which is what's implied and explicit, I think, is bringing life to that which has been empty and barren, because that's the central story that they tell about what's happened is that this, that this has been empty, that what people, we don't know anything about all of that. And this language that the state of Israel uses about making the desert bloom, that is the primary work and activity of the Jewish National Fund. So some of that is historical. This is Blueprint Negev, is an example of the ongoing right now work of the Jewish National Fund, funded largely by the Jewish National Fund inside of the U.S. And it's a targeting. It's the state of Israel is a state with boundaries that continue to expand. So it's a part of the continued expansion of the state is targeting indigenous Bedouin communities in the Negev desert, or the Nakab, and Al Araqib, which you saw Aziz speak about in the video, is a village that's been destroyed and rebuilt 45 times when we were there in January. And it's just, you know, it's more and more and more just trees and demolition, and it just doesn't end, and it's not a you know, as Jamal said, it started in 1948, but it didn't finish. It really continues, and it also started prior to 1948. So, and a big part of what the sort of message and the work of the campaign is saying, ethnic cleansing and environmental destruction are not charitable activities, and working to expose the Jewish National Fund because how it presents itself and how it's seen by so many is so dramatically different than what it is that it actually is doing. To expose it, to delegitimize it, and one of the ways we hope to do that is by revoking the charitable status and saying these are absolutely, you know, we may or may not be thrilled about charity either, but these are certainly not charitable activities, and that the Jewish National Fund is benefiting from destruction of Palestinian land and way of life, benefiting from land and water theft, building settlements on Palestinian land and property, and planting trees over the ruins of destroyed villages. And so this is a few examples of the parks: Independence Park and JFK Memorial, British Park, Jordan Valley Meeting Point, Canada Park, and then additionally, you know, all of the different ways that they destroy the natural habitat and the impact that they have on water and on land, and their participation in this discriminatory land administration. And the Jewish National Fund in the United States plays a huge role in all of that, raising $50 million per year to support J.N.F. activities. And in all 50 states, the Jewish National Fund you receive a tax benefit from donating to the Jewish National Fund. And this is just a list of U.S. projects, including JFK Memorial and a Coretta Scott King forest. I think there's also a Paul Robeson forest, which is painful. And so, and just, I'll talk a little bit more at the end, but the campaign to stop the Jewish National Fund is a part of the Palestinian National Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement. I will have, in just a little while, a copy on this table, a copy of that call put out in 2005 from Palestinian civil society. And for other folks might be aware of the movements around boycott, divestment, and sanctions of Israel. So Stop the J.N.F. campaign is a part of that movement. And you know, working to revoke charitable status inside of the U.S. and that work is happening all over the world to revoke the charitable status of the Jewish National Fund. So this is more of what the campaign is doing. So working on both documenting, which this project is a part of that, and Karen was also a part of a sort of a fact-finding delegation around documenting what it is that's actually happened, documenting and exposing this ongoing work, protesting and disrupting events and fundraising activities, acting to revoke this charitable status all over the world, again, over 50 countries, condemning the activities through popular tribunals and truth commissions, supporting Palestinian and Israeli organizations that are working to stop the Jewish National Fund and their displacement of Palestinians in the Nakab and in the Galilee, and really urging organizations that have relationships with the Jewish National Fund to break their ties. So especially organizations that are environmental organizations or that do work that claims to be anti-racist or that is racial justice work, to really be clear this is not a good ally for you. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to share just one more piece And then we'll have time for some questions and a little more engagement. So these are also some pictures from the recent delegation. This is a picture inside of the Haitian refugee camp, and we met with elders in the village who were present in 1948, and their perspective was very, very helpful in understanding all of this. And just to be clear, this is a refugee camp. So we spoke with elders from Zakaria and Azur, and we saw in the video British Park, which is built, which is trees planted on top of the ruins of Zakaria and Azur. And then we met with elders in the Haitian refugee camp from those villages. So the connections are very clear. This is not some abstract kind of situation. And the villages are less than 30 kilometers away from the refugee camp. And most of the people who we were speaking with have never been allowed to set foot in their villages. So, you know, we're talking a very, very close distance, and people who are 92 and were moved in 1948 and have never been able to return in any kind of capacity. And what we heard over and over and over again was the centrality of the right of return to justice for Palestinians. And this is just one piece, which you may have also seen in the video, but no peace without justice, no justice without return. So there's a lot of sort of putting out of different kinds of solutions around this conflict, and oh, you know, we can have land for Palestinians and land that's for Jews, but the refugees can't return, you know, and it was clear in a lot of ways, and much clearer being there, that there's absolutely no justice for Palestinians and no justice for Palestine without the right of return. Many people who were removed from their homes and their villages in 1948 still have the key to those homes, which many of which are, or most of which are not there any longer. But they have this key, and this key has become a symbol of right of return and of al-Nakba. And this is the entrance to Aida refugee camp, and you can see that's it. It's a key, you know, the length of the building. It's a very, very large key. And this is a picture at the entrance of British Park, and it just says, you know, thanks for being here, pick up your litter and enjoy yourselves, and have a good day, kind of thing. And this is inside of, I believe, Azur, inside of British Park. This was Azur village. And, you know, if you're not paying very close attention, and if you're not particularly interested, this might look like sort of a pile of rubble, but if you look even a little bit closely, these are very clearly cut stones that were once buildings. And you can see sort of over here, these are, you know, this is not just random rocks collected around. This is a picture of a common practice is the sort of simultaneous erasure and appropriation of these villages. So this is a village that was once called Azur. It was a Palestinian village, and it now is called Agur, which is a Hebrew name, now the Hebrew name for this place. And this is a still intact mosque. It was a mosque of Zakaria, which is just outside of a settlement, which is called Zakaria, a Jewish settlement. And it's also just outside of British Park. So here's a picture of, here's Zaharia settlement. So they've destroyed these gorgeous, gorgeous stone, very old, beautiful stone buildings, and built, you know, this. Here's a similar entrance to the U.S. Independence Park, and we see people everywhere, young Israelis, some of whom may live in nearby settlements, enjoying their lunch, drinking wine, you know, they're just hanging out. There's tables for them to be comfortable, and this is just a park for pretty much everyone that we saw using the park. This is just like you know, Saturday afternoon, nice place to hang out. This is a picture of a water distribution plant, which is sort of on a hill, and it's on a hill above this village, which is an unrecognized Bedouin village. So there's nothing particularly remarkable about that, except that the water distribution plant is bringing water under the village and to the settlement on the other side, which you can't see because of this smog. And similarly with electricity, there's in Al-Araqib and other unrecognized villages, we see the electric towers, we see the wires running over the villages, and there's no water or electrical services provided to these villages. And here's another picture outside of Al-Araqib, and these are now not pines, but they're eucalyptus, and it's really difficult to have any sense of the scale of this from the video and from the photo, but this is literally trees planted as far as the eye can see and much, much farther than the eye can see. This is thousands of acres of tiny little saplings just like this, and again, as a reminder, these are places where very old and beautiful and fruit-producing trees have been bulldozed for the purpose of planting these trees. So it becomes clear, I hope, that this is not a project that's about, you know, greening the desert or making things beautiful, but that these trees have a very explicit purpose. They're here for a reason, and they're here to claim this land from Palestinians and continue this process of theft and erasure. And then you saw this in the video also, but there's weekly protests of people from Al-Araqib and supporters of Al-Araqib resisting this repeated destruction. This is a bulldozer in the Naqab desert, and this is to me, this is maybe art, or I don't know what it is, but from the perspective of who put it there, but this to me is a monument to home demolitions. It's a celebration and a monument to destruction and demolitions. And a sign like this we saw everywhere, so you know, highway signs that have Hebrew and the English and the Arabic blacked out with spray paint. So this is a project of erasure. And then this is one of the elders who you saw in the video, who told us about his life, and this is another woman in Dahesha who told us about her experience, and I believe she's from Ajur. And this is just pictures of the tree planting, and our biggest tree planting day was in a village called Herbat Twayel in the South Hebron Hills. And the tree planting activity was focused on places that are currently being targeted by the Jewish National Fund, by land that's really is threatened. And so these folks live in a place with sort of a settlement on the hill behind them, and are frequently harassed by settlers. And we planted 112 olive trees in the fields, and it was very, very moving and exciting to do so. And as Jamal Juma was telling us, each tree we put in the ground had a sign that says in Arabic the name of and 112 trees for the 112 years that the Jewish National Fund has been destroying, wreaking havoc and removing and destroying, removing people, destroying homes and villages. There's one going into the ground. And I want to just read one thing to you. So it says, this is from Max Blumenthal, and it says, "The pine trees themselves were instruments of concealment, strategically planted by the Jewish National Fund on the sites of the hundreds of Palestinian villages the Zionist militias evacuated and destroyed in 1948. And I don't remember the exact number, but it's like around 530, 535, something like that. That's the number of villages destroyed in 1948. With forests sprouting up where towns once stood, those who had been expelled would have nothing to come back to. Meanwhile, to outsiders, beholding the strangely alpine landscape of northern Israel for the first time, it seemed as though the Palestinians had never existed. And that was exactly the impression the J.N.F. intended to create, the practice that David Ben-Gurion and other prominent Zionists referred to as redeeming the land was in fact the ultimate form of greenwashing. So I just think it really expresses the impact of these trees and the impact of the Jewish National Fund. And I'm gonna talk at you for just a couple more minutes. So the goal of this presentation and the goal of a tour that I'm beginning, this is the first event in a 9-city tour that I'm going to be doing this April. And the goal is really to raise awareness about the Jewish National Fund, increase involvement in this campaign. And there's lots and lots of ways to do that. One way, which can be done right now, is that this, and I'll pass it out, but this is a postcard to the Internal Revenue Service of the United States, the IRS. And it's very small, so you might need your glasses, but this is a letter demanding that the IRS revoke the charitable status of the Jewish National Fund. And that's work that's happening all over the world, as I said. And if you sign them and leave them, we will mail them. They're very large, so we don't actually know what the postage is yet, so we'll mail them. So the other thing is to just be talking about the Jewish National Fund and its role, and to be making connections between the work of the Jewish National Fund and colonization of Palestine with other kinds of work that you might do. So if that's environmental justice work, or if it's indigenous sovereignty work, to really be kind of making connections wherever it makes sense to. There's an opportunity for people, if they're interested, to organize a chapter locally, a sort of chapter of this campaign, or a group of people who are interested in working on the campaign, to protest and disrupt events of the Jewish National Fund, and to have educational events like this. All of these materials could be available to other folks. And then there's also an ebook and lots of material if people wanted to have a study group or things like that. And then what the campaign is offering to people who are interested is an opportunity to participate in national or international calls and organized coordinated events, which, so it offers community and communication, it offers direction and also coordination. So one small event in one place has an impact, but one event that's connected to many other events in many other places with a clear politic and unified message has the potential to have a much larger impact. And that's my belief that that's a part of sort of how movements are built. And I'll just tell you what's on this table, and then I'll hopefully answer questions that you have. So there's a brochure that talks more about the Jewish National Fund here. And then there's 2 materials that are related to the work of IJAN and not specifically Stop the J.N.F. But it's a Case by Jews Against Zionism and for Collective Liberation, which is a speech and a really exciting articulation of IJAN's work and of the power of a Jewish location in speaking out against Zionism. And then there's a pamphlet here. Everything is free except for this pamphlet is requesting a $2 or $3 donation. And that's about Israel's worldwide role in repression. So it talks about Israel's role in militarizing and surveilling and all the things that that people and movements face around the world. Israel plays a pretty central role in all of that. And then the last thing are narrow bridge candles, which are made by me, and it's a Jewish ritual candle making project in support of the full Palestinian call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions. So I have candles here for sale and cards, and you can sign up to be on a very, very occasional list if you want it. But it's a project that supports me in doing the work that I do, and also profits go to the Stop the J.N.F. campaign. And for people who have tried to buy Jewish ritual candles that are not made in Israel, it's not always an easy thing to do. So it's a way to support people in supporting boycott. So I know that there's people here that know a lot about the Jewish National Fund, and maybe people for whom this is very new information. So I just want to welcome any kind of questions. And, I may not know the answer. And then after some questions, I think we might have even a little more time for discussion and hearing about how this might fit in with local work or that kind of thing. So, do people have questions?
Do you have available the slides or any video online somewhere?
I think not yet. The video was just finished on Sunday, so it should be up soon. And if you want to, so Flo has a contact sheet. If you want to give me your contact information and just put a little note that that's what you're specifically interested in. Oh, no lines, huh? Darn it. Okay. Yeah, I know. So and I'll maybe just pass this around for anybody that's interested. And if there's something that you're particularly interested in, you can make a little note there. There's no line, so there's plenty of room for you to write what you want. And that's something that I would be really happy and excited to share. And the Stop the J.N.F. Website, which is stopthejnf.org, has a lot of materials. It has this brochure, I think. It has postcard. It has a letter to the IRS. It has, excuse me, sort of like a document that catalogs environmental destruction. And it's really is an excellent resource, and will be more and more updated as the momentum of this campaign builds. So.
So
yeah.
Jonah, I'm trying to push some emotion down because there's so much more destruction even in the years since I was there. I'm wondering, one, if we sign this, if we've already signed the letter to the IRS, and also I have from a previous incarnation, this is really beautiful, I have the letter to the IRS that we did on the cheap last year, if people want a copy so they can actually read what they said.
Great.
This is beautiful and tiny, but I do have them if anyone wants to actually take one with you and read it. But do we sign it? Are they continuing to collect them?
I mean, we're sending them. I don't know that they're doing anything with them.
Like the day the campaign started. So.
I would say just keep signing it. I mean, why not?
Okay.
Other people have questions? Yeah.
I guess I have a comment. Karen didn't mention it, but through our cable television show, Karen did a very similar presentation to yours that got recorded and is available on ourworldindepth.org. I don't know if you personally have seen it or not, but it's available as another resource. I think there were maybe 3 or 4 new slides in your presentation.
And it's probably called Trees as a Weapon of War.
Yep, Trees as a Weapon of War is the title of the show.
Okay, is that something that would be available for us to put up on the website or in some other forum for people to see, or is that more of a private?
Oh no, it usually.
Please use.
Okay, great. I'll look for it and I'll let you know if I can't find it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
So, do you know what environmental groups or what national environmental groups are supporting the J.N.F?
I don't know specifically. Do you know, Karen?
What's the question?
If I know what environmental groups specifically are supporting the J.N.F, which I don't. I know that they're invited to be a part of all kinds of environmental events and conferences, and I will make a note and I will find out. Other folks have questions?
Did you say what kind of trees you're planting?
What kind of trees we were planting? Those are olive trees. Yeah. Which are really central to a lot of the sustenance of that area where we were. Olive oil and olives, and an important part of supporting families and communities, and then also of trade and livelihood. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, getting the IRS to change its status, of course, would be a lovely payoff. The real benefits are the education and reaching communities and severing the funders and severing the connections and severing the legitimacy. And I'm wondering if there's anything particular that's happened so far that seems to have been more effective, either in how the stories were presented or in the kind of tactics that you use to reach people.
Yes, well, it's not a direct answer to your question, but just to share, because I think it's very exciting. So this campaign, the Stop the J.N.F. campaign, was launched in 2010, and it really is picking up all over the place. So it's active inside of the US, the UK, South Africa, Germany, France, and then there's beginnings of interest in campaign activity in South America, Australia, and in other locations in Europe. And an example of a success of the campaign is in the UK, the J.N.F. has lost around 4 or 5 significant patrons already, which is a high-profile individual who donates a lot of money but also lends their sort of name and face. And one of them including David Cameron, and that in the last year, the J.N.F. in the UK has lost 49% of their annual funds as a result of this shift. So it seems really, really big and really hopeless, but I think there's real successes as people just. I mean, the work of the Jewish National Fund has been so. What's that word that means covered in? I don't know. So just filled with this propaganda and so entwined with stories about Jewish safety and stories about in a way that I think hopefully people are finally having some ability to pull apart or see what has actually happened. And then the other thing that's exciting that's happened is inside of South Africa, there's a store chain, a huge chain called Reggie, which is like a toy store. I'm told it's sort of like Toys R Us in the U.S. that has broken their ties with the J.N.F. And basically divested from the J.N.F. So, and there's a lot of activity also around getting the German the parliament in Germany to withdraw their support, and I think it's failed in its first attempts at that. But again, it's brand new, and there's a lot of kind of momentum and energy there. So it's moving.
Can I address it?
Yeah.
The other thing is that the delegation that Jonah went on, during the year, people are signing up through I think Mecca's website, and you can plant a tree in Palestine. Like we used to plant trees in Israel when I was growing up. And I mean, they still are, because I got an email telling me to plant a tree in Israel like 3 days ago. So they obviously don't have the best market research.
Right.
But
so this is a certificate.
And so the delegation is actually going and physically planting the trees that over the year people have contributed money, and it's like a concrete, action that you can take that connects you to Palestine in the way that we're all supposed to feel, especially Jews, but all of us in the United States are supposed to feel this connection to Israel. And this is real and helpful, and it plants trees that sustain the population as opposed to trees that are destroying everything.
So this is a certificate that costs $20, and this literally buys the tree that you saw pictures of being planted. So if people are interested in that, let me know as well. Other people have questions or comments, responses? Yeah.
I went to school in Arab Catholic school in Haifa, and there was a day called Tubushvat, when people were out planting trees, and they marched all the students up to the mountain to plant trees. And the Arab community, the Israeli Arab community, is bought into this as a regreening thing, and that's something that I didn't think about when I was there, but seeing it from far away.
Yeah. So I don't know if people know what Tu B'Shvat is, but it's a Jewish holiday that is specifically oriented around trees and sort of wonder and sacredness of trees. And it's a holiday that the Jewish National Fund has specifically appropriated and sort of twisted for their own purposes. And they now have on Tu B'Shvat have an event, I know in the US and probably it's a worldwide event called Green Sunday, and then it's focused on this plant a tree in Israel project that I referenced. And it's an example of, for me, what I experience as a distortion and an appropriation of something that actually has meaning to me, but I absolutely don't at all support the way that it's being used. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Boy, I have two really different things that I'm trying to decide which I should ask. Well, if you're interested, I'll leave it open. You can choose. Would you like to comment on how, like, your personal process was for, like, liberating yourself from Zionist ideology? Like, what's your story, if you want to share? And then second, it's probably even a more tough question, but any idea on the possibility of success in lobbying the IRS? Have there been other campaigns to, withdraw charitable status from some organization?
Okay. I'll start with the second question. I do not know about other charitable status being removed from for other organizations. I haven't heard of that.
There was once the Zionist Organization of America in the 70s. They lost their charitable funding, and they did what charities do, which is they shifted so that the part that was declared to not be charitable was moved into the arm of the organization that doesn't do charitably funded work, and they shifted their more educational. So and it's understood that would likely happen. That's how organizations deal with losing their charities.
Right.
So it's what Ricardo said, that it's a very good tool for educating people.
Right.
But we're not, the campaign doesn't rise and fall on the success of getting the IRS.
I seem to recall there was a Klan front, Ku Klux Klan front that had land and educational stuff that also had a status quo.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But in terms of challenging the notion that the Zionist mission is sort of fundamentally racist, this was the type of challenge that the Zionist Organization of America faced.
Right.
I can't answer what Jonah's story is.
I can say just a little bit. So, actually, the man that just left is my friend and mentor Jesse, and we were both living in Iowa in 2001, and there was a attack in Iowa, in Des Moines, on an organization called the National Conference for Community and Justice, which had previously been the National Conference for Christians and Jews. And it was an organization in Des Moines that was led by men of color, that was doing racial justice organizing and youth work in Des Moines, anti-oppression youth camps and stuff like that. And I was newly sort of learning about white supremacy and racism and where I maybe fit into that, and facilitating anti-oppression camps at this as a part of this organization. And this organization, for a couple of very minor things, such as having a sign in the window for a Palestinian film festival, such as having a speaker who talked about racism and white supremacy and also about Israel, basically were challenged, threatened, and then had their funding removed by Jewish funders, and after 75 years of doing racial justice work in Des Moines, were closed. And I had not previously been active around Palestine issues, or particularly formulated in terms of what it was all about. And this moment, what became very, very clear to me about where the power was in this situation, and what was kind of required of me to be an ally. So that was sort of a turning point for me around it, and it's felt pretty clear from then on. So yeah. Other people have either reactions or responses to what I showed, or yeah.
This is kind of a comment. You quoted from Max Blumenthal, whose piece was in the e-book, and you did mention the e-book, but I think you should emphasize it. There's a very good book on the stuff at J.N.F.org website on called "The Greenwashing of Apartheid" or something like that. Yeah.
So on the website there is an ebook, and I believe it's downloadable, right, and printable, and that would be an excellent thing for a study group if you know other people who are interested in learning about this history. It's a tremendous amount of information. That's very exciting.
I just wanted to say there was one piece in there that I struggled with, and you mentioned it briefly, and that was the draining of Lake Hula. And the reason I struggled with it is because an awful lot of people with a lot of good intentions did stupid things environmentally. And I think unless you find some specific reference saying we're going to drain this lake to drive off the Bedouins that live around it, or something to that effect, this could just be another stupid thing that people did, and not necessarily for ethnic cleansing.
Yeah. My understanding was that it was drained so that the land could be used for farming or something else. So I think, I mean, I don't know what the exact people that were doing it were thinking when they were doing it, but yes, I do know that a lot of very stupid things have been done just out of not understanding well how the environment works. This seems like it was about making use of that, making use of the land also for the state. And I didn't talk a lot about Lake Hula, but other thoughts?
One quick comment to point out yet another parallel between U.S. policies and Israeli policies of genocide of indigenous people, just the not recognizing the ability of a state to just conveniently not recognize a tribe or a village because it doesn't behoove, because that tribe or village is in the way of a resource or in the way of what that state or nation, the power wants. And so when you're showing that clip of the water going around this unrecognized village, and there's so many tribes here in this country that are fighting for recognition for the same to have access to their resources.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. People hear that? Good. Okay. What else?
There's an example of what you're talking about in Palestine. When they're growing trees and declaring areas as parks, the Jewish agency, along with the government, the courts, made it illegal for farmers to graze their herds of goats in the mountains. And with the introduction of the pine trees and the ground now was that everything is growing into a thick forest. The forest, the fires in Haifa that we've seen recently, with people dying in the fires, was a result of that. Now the court is saying, okay, we should let the goats graze again because Israeli scientists at the university declared that it's safer for the, it's better for fire control to let the goats graze again. So they're allowing the farmers to go back in there with their herds.
Thank you. It's helpful. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so if people don't have other thoughts or questions for the large group, we can close. And these materials are here, and I'll be here if you want to talk with me or have anything that you want to ask me. And the BDS call is here also, and certificates, and so just come and take things if they're helpful. And also be in touch if there's ways. Well, we'll be in touch with you if you shared your information, and just be in touch about ways that this kind of organization, this campaign, can support work that you're doing. And we'll hope that if there's things happening here that we'll hear about them and they can go up on the website, and just hoping to really increase level of organization and communication around all of this. So thank you so much for being here, and let other folks know, and hope to come back again.
If people are outraged and want to be in the streets, there's a couple opportunities coming up. Tuesday is the commemoration of the 65th anniversary of the commemoration of the massacre at Deir Yassin. From that lovely 47 to 49 period Jonah was talking about. And a week from tonight, we're going to be out at Bethel Synagogue because they're having Ehud Barak. And anyone who doesn't know who Ehud Barak is, come and talk to me. But we'll be outside. It says 5 o'clock, but that's just so we're there to greet him when he arrives. People stay until he leaves. So if you can't, if 5 o'clock's too early for you, still come later. And join us whenever. Well, thank you, Karen. Thanks.
Palestine Day.
Oh yeah, Palestine Day is Sunday. This comes, the 6th, which is 2 days, oh, that's Saturday, 2 days from now.
Yeah.
Aloxa Institute's annual.
Thank you. Yeah,
The
sorry,
postcards are
postcards.
beautiful.
Can pass them up to this table.
Hey, Jonah.
Yes.
Not to, well, just to make a suggestion, since we ain't, well, why don't you pull up a chair over here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I would love to do that.